All right, I've got a side-by-side Frigidaire Professional. Um, this fridge is about 6 years old. It's not making ice right now. It's been working perfectly fine, making tons of ice, making ice fast, and it went from perfectly fine to not working at all. So, I've been reading a bunch of stuff or watching a bunch of stuff on YouTube, which suggests one of them taking it apart, another running diagnostics, another using a hair dryer to heat up the freezer side. But a lot of them seem to cross paths with the suggestion that just thawing the freezer may solve the issue. So I'm going to try what I think is the simplest thing first, which is thawing the freezer out. So my plan is to turn the fridge off completely using the power buttons, and then just leave the freezer side of the side-by-side open to come to room temperature. So right now, there's the control panels on this. There's a power button. The existing fridge temp is 39, the existing freezer temp is 2. I'm obviously overdue for replacing these filters, but so what I want to do is probably like everybody, you got to match the stuff in the freezer side and match the stuff in the fridge side. So what I've done already is to take everything that I don't really need in the fridge. I don't know, I think a lot of people have stuff in the fridge that doesn't really necessarily need to be there, like mustard and whatever. But I took out the wine that was chilled. I took out a bag that's got some lemons in it. I took out the lettuce and the spinach and a bag of lemons or onions, I forget which is which, and a bag of chocolate chips. And I'm throwing away the old yogurt, and I'm going to eat some leftovers. So I made some room, and what I want to do is have these spaces so I remember what I can have one space that's all freezer. So I separated, I got one cleared out shelf, and I'm going to finish clearing this shelf out. And I got one cleared out bin, and what I'm going to do is the stuff that absolutely needs to come out of the freezer, can't go to room temperature, I'm going to put in the fridge. So hopefully it's going to stay frozen for a while, because it's not going to heat up right away. So, like the tortellini that really need to stay frozen, hopefully they're going to stay frozen. But the other stuff like the Jägermeister, I'll just let come to room temperature. I'm going to take that out. So I'm going to just strip out this left side completely. And then the stuff that absolutely needs to be cold, like the tortellini and the meat and stuff, I'm going to put here in the fridge. Other stuff I'm just going to set on the counter, like the Jägermeister. And then I'm going to close up this fridge side, open up the freezer side, and turn the entire fridge off. So the fridge side is going to take quite a while to come up to any kind of temperature that's going to melt or defrost the tortellini and the meat and stuff like that. It's not going to happen instantly because they're in the fridge. Then the fridge temperature is going to stay relatively cold, because even though the fridge is off, I'm not going to open that. And I think what I'll do is I'll just put a fan here, not a heater, to blow air into this fridge or freezer side as it stands open. So that's it for the moment. All right, so here's a couple minutes later. I've taken out like the freezer stuff that doesn't need to be frozen. So some of Bekarovka and stuff like that, fireball kind of things. I've got all these. I've got a bunch of pine nuts that I've frozen. I'm going to take those out and put them on the counter. Fireball, Jägermeister, those are going to go on the counter. Some unidentified thing from the freezer is going to get thrown away. Some glassware, more pine nuts. Some stuff from the fridge that was kind of in the way of me sorting. I have some room, but I've sorted like, okay, that's all the freezer stuff. That's all freezer stuff, and the bottom bin is all freezer stuff. So when the time comes, I don't have to think too hard. So that's the plan. All right, so I'm back here. We've just taken the last few things out of the freezer because we want this we don't want that stuff to keep the freezer cold. We want things to be open and warm up as fast as possible. So I'm also going to take this out, which obviously has no ice, since that's my problem. And I'm going to put a dish towel in here. I don't really know where the water's going to wind up, but supposedly, presumably the issue is with ice back in this ice maker somewhere. So I'm going to put the towel there, and I'll clean up the bottom of the freezer once I've got everything is going here. So what I wanted to show you is, let me close this to turn that open door alarm off. So again, I'm not going to change the fridge temp or the freezer temp. I'm just going to turn the whole thing off. So I'm going to turn the power on off right here. All right, so now it's still making a noise of some kind. Obviously, it still has power to it. I didn't unplug it, but it's off. You can hear the compressor turn off, and that's all we care about. So, and I've got a box fan, and it's conveniently located, plug conveniently located there. And I'm just going to turn this on and blow a bunch of room temperature air through that freezer. It's not going to take long for that to come up to above freezing temp. And then I'm not going to open this other side, the fridge side, and we'll see how cold it stays, but it should stay, all that stuff should stay frozen, because I don't expect this to take too long. Maybe an hour at the most, and you can lose power in your house for an hour and your stuff's going to be fine. So I don't think that fridge side is going to warm up. The meat's not going to thaw or anything like that in an hour. And the house temperature is whatever, 68 degrees or something like that, 70 degrees. So with the fan here, this should melt this out pretty quick. So it's just going to sit like this for an hour, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to go watch Messi and Ronaldo play PSG versus this superstar 11 from the Middle East. All right, check back later for see how this worked out. All right, so follow up to the ice maker thing. It's starting to make ice. Hopefully it's going to continue to make ice. I just took everything out of the freezer that is there now, and put all the stuff that had to stay cold in the fridge. Took the stuff that didn't have to stay cold, put it on the counter, turned the entire refrigerator off. Didn't open the fridge side, so all that stuff would stay cold, and put a fan in front of the freezer side here, blowing room temperature air on it for about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. Everything was completely liquid, or well, completely dry, and I'll just show you, like up in here, if you reach up above, you can touch inside there, and those little ice cubes in there that melted and then became room temperature, so you can check to see if things are really thawed by maybe putting your finger up there. Anyway, so the idea was just to get the freezer side of the unit completely up to room temperature, and let it stay there, so anything that could be frozen or have chunks of ice where they're not supposed to be or whatever would thaw. And I did that, and just hoping that it's going to work, I turned the freezer back on, and it started making ice. Well, I turned the whole unit back on, it started making ice, and once it's made that first round of ice, I put all the stuff back in here on the freezer side, and it's going. So it took a while for it to make ice again after I turned it on, so be patient. It was probably at least another 2.5 hours. But it worked, and it was free. All right, so all it took was time. So one thing that a refrigerator technician is not going to have a lot of is time, and so just do what you can on your own and give it a shot. It didn't cost a cent, just took some time, and so far it seems to be working. If for some reason it doesn't fill that ice thing up by tomorrow morning, then I'll revisit this. But at this point, it looks like everything's good. All right, so this is 8:30 the next morning. Finished this up about 2:30 yesterday, so 16 hours. So in that time, the freezer went from room temperature to frozen again, and we're slowly making ice. It's not making ice very fast, but it's making ice. So it's better. It's definitely working now, where it wasn't making ice at all before, but it's not very fast. And so I know there's a setting you can set to, well, supposedly there's a setting you can set to change how fast it makes ice, so maybe I'll go look into that. But I don't think it's back to where it had been at new. I'm not sure what's happened with the ice making, but definitely it's making ice where it wasn't making ice before, and all I did was empty the freezer and bring it up to room temperature. So for zero cost and just some investment in time, at least I've got some ice.